quality childcare. Take time to choose. Choosing quality childcare is a challenging task. Parents want the best for their children. They need childcare that provides a safe, happy, and interesting environment. They also need a childcare arrangement that meets their family needs. Finding good childcare takes time, knowledge, and skill. Basically, there are 6 steps. Think about your childcare needs. Locate available childcare options. Call childcare providers. Interview several caregivers. Observe providers, and check references. Let's follow 2 families as they go through this process. Karen is a single-parent mother of Alan, age 4, and Jeff, age 7. She has recently moved to a new home and needs to locate childcare. Vicki and Dan have 3-year-old Beth and a new baby, Laura. Vicki has been on leave from her job and has decided to return to work. Step 1, think about your childcare needs.
I recently moved and I needed to find childcare right away. I have a sister who lives here, but I really don't know anyone else yet. I come from a small town and I feel a little lost. Right now, I can barely find my way to work in the grocery store. Finding childcare, really good childcare, seems a little overwhelming. I have 2 types of childcare needs: before and after school care and all-day childcare. Jeff is in school now, but he's only 7. He's pretty responsible, but I don't feel really comfortable about him staying home alone after school yet, especially since we are new here. He can tell me what he should do in an emergency, like if the house caught on fire or something, but I'm not sure he's experienced enough to think clearly in a crisis. He's a good kid and seems so grown up now, but he just isn't old enough to stay by himself after school. I'm not sure if I would rather have him in a family daycare home or an after-school center program. Mainly, I just want him to be safe and happy. Alan is 4. He was in a family daycare home before, and I really liked that, but he might like being in a child care center now. Alan is really becoming very social and loves to play with other 4-year-olds. Also, he talks all the time about going to school, like Jeff. I want Alan to have the opportunity to be with a number of other children his age. I think that can best happen in a child care center. I also like the idea that centers generally hire a substitute if a teacher is ill. That's important to me because, as a single parent, I find it hard to take time off when a provider is ill or on vacation and I'm unable to find backup care.
We have 2 children, Beth, who's 3, and Laura, who's about 3 months. We decided we wanted to keep them together. We know families that have their children in different places, and that just seems crazy to us. And we wanted to find a place that was professional and had been in business for quite some time.
We also wanted a more home-like environment and wanted our girls to be able to grow up together and play together. And we realized if we placed them in a child care center, that would mean that they'd be separated into different age groups and in different rooms, and they wouldn't be able to spend much time together.
We want our girls to feel that if they just want to flop on the couch or maybe curl up under the dining room table with a blanket, that would be okay.
I also want the baby to have one main provider. I guess there are pros and cons to that. When a provider is alone with several children with no adults for backup, things can get pretty stressful. But I've heard that infants do better with one primary caregiver rather than with a whole lot of adults. And we want our child care provider to be really close with our baby like we are.
And we want to give Beth a chance to be the big sister and just to help by just being around. I guess we like to think of our child care arrangement as kind of an extended family.
Step 2, locate available child care options. Locating childcare is not always easy, especially when you have several children. Karen's only link to her community was through her sister, who didn't really know much about what was available. So Karen did what most parents do. She opened the phone book and began calling. She was confused by the number of programs. Then she noticed a number for a local child care resource and referral agency.
Good afternoon, Child Care Resource and Referral.
Yes, I'm looking for child care and I need some help. I noticed in your ad that you assist parents with referrals and information.
Sure. We can provide you with a referral to child care options which meet your needs and are in your area. Yes, we'll also provide you with information that will help you to make your decision. Tell me a little bit about your children and your child care needs.
In Iowa, the Department of Human Services has implemented a statewide child care resource and referral system to help parents seeking child care. Resource and referral agencies provide parent education and help in the selection of child care. The Child Care Resource and Referral Agency asked Karen about her specific needs, the ages of her children, what type of hours, and what type of care she needed. They also asked Karen about her income, and she discovered that she was eligible for assistance to help pay child care fees. Karen received names of providers who are available in her area. Karen also requested information concerning whether providers were registered or licensed, if they smoked or kept pets, and whether they participated in the Child and Adult Care Food Program. The Resource and Referral Counselor visited with Karen about how to look for quality child care and sent her a parent packet that explained the differences between different types of child care, the licensing and registration, and gave her an observation checklist that she could use as she went around to interview and observe providers in her community.
Well, the Resource and Referral Center makes referrals rather than recommendations. As a parent, you must decide which program meets the individual needs of your family and is best suited for your child. But we will provide you with information that will help you to know questions to ask and things to look for as you're completing your interviews.
We basically found out about the Resource and Referral Center from Vicki's employer. Before she had the baby, we were looking over our insurance benefits with their personnel department, and they gave us this brochure that describes what the Resource and Referral Center offers to families. Finding family daycare is tough. It's kind of a word-of-mouth process, so we thought we'd look into it. We went down to their office and filled out a form, and they asked us what we wanted and helped us think through some things, like what kind of discipline would be used, what kind of activities they would be having, and what questions to ask about routines and daily activities, things like that.
We learned that child care providers who are licensed, registered, or non-registered who receive payment from the DHS are required to meet certain minimum requirements for basic health and safety. We also learned that registered and licensed providers must go through a criminal records check and a child abuse registry check for the state of Iowa.
Unfortunately, that doesn't mean that a provider is 100% guaranteed. If someone has a criminal record or a child abuse record from another state, their name won't show up in an Iowa records check. And one founded case of child abuse does not necessarily mean that a provider would have their license or their registration revoked automatically. Registration and licensing provide some safeguards, but they're not foolproof.
That's why it's so important for us to thoroughly check things out and to keep a watchful eye on our child care situation. When you come right down to it, it's our responsibility to make sure our kids are safe.
Now, we also learned that some family child care providers participate in the Child and Adult Care Food Program. That means that they're reimbursed for food costs and that they have to meet certain nutritional guidelines. We like that. Now, we know that there's a whole lot more to being a good child care provider than just these things, but it's a good start.
Step 3. Call child care providers.
To narrow down my options, I interviewed by phone first. I started with the basics. I told them the ages of my children and asked if they had any openings. If they said no, I asked about a waiting list. If they had an opening, I asked about hours and about the number of children cared for by each adult. I also asked for a little background information about the center and the experience educational level of each of the teachers. I found out that some centers didn't have the hours I needed, and some would allow me to pay weekly, while others wanted payment at the beginning of each month. I kept a list of each place I called and rated them either good, okay, or not acceptable. I found out by doing this that there are 2 places I wasn't interested in.
We agreed to share the phone interviews. I called half and Dan called half.
Basically, we asked them if they had an opening, if they were registered, if they participated in the child care food program, how long they'd been in business, and what their background was.
Then we compared notes, decided who we wanted to interview in person, and set up appointments. We insisted that we visit the provider during the day because we also wanted to see the other children that our kids would be playing with and how the provider interacted with them.
We had to move pretty fast because it was kind of hard to find providers who had openings for 2 children at the same time. In fact, one provider had already accepted 2 other children into her program before we got back to her.
We did have to move quickly, but we didn't take shortcuts. We took the time to make sure we were making the right decision.
Step 4. Interview several caregivers.
I felt really nervous about interviewing a child care provider. The resource and referral counselor I spoke with told me to interview at least 3 providers for each of my children. This kind of threw me at first. It takes a lot of time to do that. But then I got to thinking that I would spend at least that amount of time shopping for a new car, and my kids are a lot more important to me than that. Finding quality child care is really important for me and for them. We've been through some rough times, and it's important that they're happy. I really liked the first place I visited, and they had room for both boys. A van would pick up Jeff after school and drop him off here, and I thought that would work really well. I used the checklist to ask a few of the questions. Would you tell me what a typical day would look like? What kind of a routine do you have?
We try to offer as much flexibility through the course of the day for the children and to give them lots of choices. When they first get there, they have a self-selection time. They can look at books, play with puzzles, bristle blocks, block play, dramatic play. There's a morning snack at 9:30, and then they usually go outdoors and play. And they come in from that and have what we call center time, and that's a little more involved types of activities, but it's still self-selection for them. And then they have lunch around 11:30 and back outside again, and they come in from that and have their rest time, and then another snack after rest time, and then they go outside and play again, and then they come in and have a short group time before the parents come to pick the children up. That's a pretty typical day.
Do you require children to sleep? A lot of times Alan has a hard time taking a nap.
We do require the children to rest for a short period of time. If they don't sleep, that's fine. They can just play quietly with a stuffed animal or read a book.
How do you handle discipline problems?
We try to provide a safe and interesting environment for the children to minimize as many behavior problems as possible. Our philosophy is to use a lot of positive reinforcement through the course of the day. I like the way you're picking up the toys, that kind of thing. Positive redirection. If a child is hitting another child on the head with the Legos, say something like, you need to build with the Legos instead of hitting your friends. And then the last thing that we would try if a child really needed to cool off for a while would be to use timeout. And that would be to just have them sit away from the group for a few minutes while they cool off. So positive reinforcement, positive redirection, and timeout are the 3 things that we use for guidance.
I really liked her responses. She seemed relaxed but in control. I felt that each day would be predictable and safe, but also fun. I was tempted to go ahead and just enroll the boys, but then I decided to visit the other 2 centers just to compare. The second place I went to was okay. It actually was a little cleaner than the first one, and they had a lot of toys and stuff like that. But they didn't have an opening for a school-ager. If I chose this program, I'd have to find another place for Jeff. And if you come right down to it, It might have been a little too clean. I mean, I know this sounds funny, but if kids are playing and having fun, things are naturally going to get a little messy. The third place I visited I didn't like at all. It was later in the day, and the provider seemed really tense. She hardly smiled, and she seemed very rigid with the children. I liked the teacher for the school-agers a lot better. He seemed to be a creative, fun-loving type of person, and he talked about the type of activities they did, like building a pretend beach, swimming in the winter, and making real pottery, stuff like that. I really, really liked this program, and I thought it was great for Jeff. He explained to me that there's a big difference between preschoolers and school-aged children, and he liked to have the older children help out with creating the curriculum. I really wanted Jeff to be in this program, but was unsure about the program for Alan. I decided to wait a couple days and then go back and observe again. When I did, I still felt very uncomfortable about the program for Alan, so I decided to enroll both boys in the first place I visited. The whole thing was very confusing and time-consuming, but I was glad I took the time, and I feel good about the decision that I made. I also know now that if things don't work out, I can always go back to the Resource and Referral Center and get some more information.
The information we got at the Resource and Referral Center really helped us a lot during the interviewing process. It felt kind of funny asking questions like, do you keep your medicine and your toilet cleaner locked up in your own home?
Hi.
Hi.
Dan?
I'm Dan, yes.
I'm Vicki.
I'm Vicki.
I'm Mary.
Thanks for meeting with us. I really appreciate your time.
I always enjoy having parents come.
Well, we just wanted to get a feel for the place, see what the kids were all about, and see how things went, and just in general.
Okay.
You know, I'm a little awkward in asking these things because, you know, asking about where the cleaning supplies are kept and even medicines being locked up and put away.
Yes, everything is in cabinets that have child-proof locks on them so that they can't get to anything. And it's wonderful to have parents who ask questions because we need to have open communication if we're going to be sharing responsibility for your child.
That's terrific. That's great.
Okay, would you like to see where some of the
Sure.
toys and equipment are stored?
You bet.
In here. We have a large variety, large and small motor things, a lot of manipulatives, a lot of toys that children can be creative with.
That's great. Another closet?
Some of the art supplies, the things that they can't get hurt with, are stored in this cupboard. We do a lot with art types of activities so that they can be exposed to different kinds of mediums and use their creative skills.
And do you use a really washable paint so that when they throw it on each other and roll around on it and stuff like that?
Everything I have is washable. Temper paints, markers, everything is washable so that parents don't have to worry about stains on clothing.
Or the kids.
Or the kids.
Yeah,
or
you
the
bet.
carpet.
Or the carpet. Yeah, that's great.
We'll go over here and look at some of the things that are over here.
I really like the
Yeah,
idea of the contract. It very clearly spelled out things like whether we paid for days the kids were sick or on vacation, how early we could drop the girls off, and what time we needed to pick them up. All of that was great. It made me realize that this woman was really a professional and really cared about what she was doing.
I thought the contract was important, but what I watched most was the way she interacted with the kids. The children really seemed to love her, and she treated them with respect. She was constantly talking to them and teaching them and listening to them.
When we interviewed providers, I tried to imagine what a child's day would be like in that environment. I wanted to know where they would eat and what they would have. I wanted to know where they would take a nap and what the routine would be.
Would she hold the baby while she was feeding her, and would she rock the baby to sleep, or would she just put her in her crib and let her cry it out?
I wanted to see what kind of toys that kids would be playing with. I wanted to see how many of them there were and if they were in good shape. And books. Now, I'm really big on books. I'm also really big on playing outside, so I wanted to ask how much time they'd be playing outside, and then I got to look at the backyard.
Step 5, observe providers.
I made it a point to just go and sit and watch for a while. I asked all the questions on the Resource and Referral checklist, and I felt basically satisfied. But the true test was just to go and watch and measure how things flowed together and how the children played together. I know that different teachers have different styles, and I wanted to see how the kids responded to that. Sometimes the kids would come up to me and say, "What are you doing?" And I would say, "I'm just watching you play. I want to see if you're having fun."
We asked a lot of questions, but we also tried to observe a lot. I especially wanted to know about the other children, because after all, our kids were going to be with these children all day long, every day. We spent some time watching the children play and interact together.
And because we did, we also got a better idea about how each provider handles discipline and behavior. In one case, we did not like what we saw.
The Resource and Referral Center suggested that we continue to evaluate our child care by occasionally dropping in unannounced just to check on things. You could say, "Oops, I forgot to drop her diapers off this morning," or "I think I'd like to take the baby home early today." The one thing I've learned from all of this is not to be afraid to look out for your kids or to ask questions. If it's important to you, you should ask about it.
Step 6. Check references.
As a follow-up, I asked for the names of 3 parents to call to see how happy they had been with the program. I also asked one parent for the name of another family they knew because I figured that one more opinion wouldn't hurt. I was a little nervous about all of this because I'm just not used to doing this sort of thing. But actually, it was pretty easy. It was much like meeting new neighbors. Very conversational, really very easy.
I called 2 parents and Dan called 1. We had good responses, very positive recommendations.
And we thought they were honest. We didn't feel they were rubber stamping her. We asked how she got along with the parents when there were problems. We asked how they felt that she got along with the children. Was she really good with them? We asked if they felt that the children from other families came and went just a little too often, things like that. I think we did a great job. It took a lot of time, but it was very rewarding. And now we feel really good because we know that we're leaving our children in the care of a very high-quality child care provider.
It is important to recognize the valuable role your caregiver plays in your child's life. Take the time to build a strong, respectful relationship with your child care provider. Choosing quality child care can sometimes be an overwhelming task, but it is one of the most important responsibilities you will undertake as a parent. Following the 6 steps used by Karen, Vicki, and Dan will help you make the right decision for your family. Think about your child care needs. Locate available child care options. Call child care providers. Interview several caregivers. Observe providers. And check references. Remember to look for or ask about the following: adults that are warm and responsive, enough adults for each group of children, interesting, fun activities, nutritious snacks and meals, a safe, clean environment, spaces for children to rest and relax, spaces for children to play actively, plenty of toys and materials to play with, such as blocks, puzzles, books, Play-Doh, puppets and balls, reasonable guidance and discipline, regular daily schedule and routines, a plan for emergencies, well-trained providers. Quality child care is important for young children and their families. Making the right choice means learning about quality and taking the time to ask questions, listen, and observe. Parents who know what to look for are parents who have taken the time to learn what's best for children. Take time to choose quality child care. If you would like to learn more about choosing quality child care, or if you need assistance in locating or working with a child care provider, you can find the name and toll-free number of your local child care resource agency in the Yellow Pages under Child Care.